so much for having me here, and thank you so much to all the people that put this together. This is a lot going on here. So I'm a social scientist, not a developer, so I want to start just by saying thank you for the work you do if you are a developer, because I know what that work is, and I appreciate it. So thank you. What I'm going to do is talk today a little bit about survey research and surveys, and you are probably a person who spends some time on the internet, and that means you've probably filled out a survey. You might have also been a person who's made a survey, because there are a ton of these little tools these days, open source, or some of them open source, some of them not, tools to be able to create a survey. And so we have a lot of surveys, and not all of them are very good. So let's pretend, we are going to pretend that we are hired to do a project that will help us learn more about people who like pumpkin spiced flavored things. These are pumpkin spice flavored donuts. By the way, there's a guy on the internet, Flickr, he has a ton of pictures of pumpkin spice flavored things. So a lot of those pictures are from him. Amazing, right? So I'm going to do a few questions. So I started us out. I've got a few questions for us. So we're going to go through some of the survey questions, and I want you to just think about what your answer would be for each of the questions. So what is your opinion about pumpkin spice flavored products? Just go ahead and read it and see which one makes sense for you. Okay. We'll do the second one. How many pumpkin spice drinks have you consumed in the past year? Just think to yourself which makes sense for you. And then we'll go to the third question. Which of the following is the least bad product, or the one you would most like to bring home? And if you can't see what these are, I'll explain them. A in the upper left-hand corner is the pasta sauce that is pumpkin flavored. Below that is the pumpkin pie Greek yogurt. And the upper right-hand corner, the pumpkin spice mallow. And then there's the pumpkin spice chicken sausage. So pick whichever one works for you. Okay, so after having these three survey questions, you might be curious, what exactly is Beth's opinion on pumpkin spice products? And here's how I'm going to tell you a story. So I was working in a windowless office in a brutalist building, much like this one. And it was during one of the first years of the pumpkin spice craze, and I had a lovely colleague. He was a lovely individual. He managed to persuade the manager of a large corporate donut shop to sell him an entire gallon of the stuff that they use to make pumpkin spice coffee drinks. Not unlike this. He was delighted by this, because he said to us this meant that we are all free to partake in the pumpkin spice flavored coffee for as long as this jug lasted. And let me tell you, my friends, this jug lasted a very long time. It also quickly started to spring a leak and got all over the cabinets, the floor. It was everywhere. And by the time we finally finished the last pump out of this thing, I started to think that we had somehow lost an actual pumpkin pie in the corner of somewhere, and it had gotten moldy, because it was so gross. It smelled disgusting, and I was not happy. So I don't really like pumpkin spice things and pumpkin spice flavored beverages, which means I have what we call a bias. So we can talk a lot about bias. I can go on and on about what biases are, but just think of it as the pumpkin spice latte version that I'm telling you about. I have an opinion that I don't think they're very good, and I'm here trying to figure out how to write a survey that talks about them. So my first tip for this is to know your biases. Try to understand before you write a question, what is the answer you think you would answer to this question, and then try to build around that, right? So if we ask Beth, what does she think about pumpkin spice lattes, she will tell you this. About sums it up for me. So if we go back to the question, where do we see this bias? Well, let's see. The first two are sort of positive, and the last four are not that positive, are they? They're pretty negative. And honestly, I'm not sure what the difference is between disgusting and revolting, if anyone can tell me. But I've given you 4 answers that are negative and 2 answers that are positive. So what I'm going to offer you here is something you've probably all seen because you've been on the internet, but Likert to the rescue. Strongly agree, agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree, right? But the other thing I did here is I changed it slightly, and I said I enjoy drinking pumpkin spice flavored beverages because beforehand it was pumpkin spice flavored products. That's very vague. So being more specific means you actually get data that is something that you can actually use. Okay, so we put a Likert in there. Now, lest you think I'm just being crazy and saying, well, yeah, but everybody uses those Likerts. This is actually a survey that a friend of mine found for a workshop. And if you can't read that, the workshop is, did you find this useful? Very useful, somewhat useful, and did not attend. So if you did not find that useful, you would have a really hard time explaining that you didn't find it useful, okay? So this is true to life. So my second tip, and this one is like my core tip for writing survey questions, is to work backwards, or to think about what are you going to do with the data that you're actually going to collect. So one of the challenges with Likerts is that people take the strongly agree, and they collapse it down to just agree, and then they take the strongly disagree and disagree and collapse it down to disagree, and they turn it into something like this. 85% of people agree that they enjoy drinking pumpkin spice beverages, 10% disagree, okay? Nothing wrong with that if that's what you want to put in to your final report. Just notice if you are, think ahead a little bit if that thing is going to be useful to you. If writing that is going to be the thing that's going to be beneficial. And then here's the fun trick. Change it. Decide whether or not it still helps you if you change the percentages that you get. So if I got 5% of people that agree that they enjoy drinking pumpkin spice beverages and 90% disagree, that's a world I want to live in. But if that's the case and if it's still going to be beneficial for you, then that means the data is going to be useful for you. And get kind of wacky too. Look at those neutral people. What if you changed it yet again, right? So change the things that what your outcome might be in terms of the data. Then also consider that there are different types of data. So I can ask this question and get a numeric data in response. So I enjoy drinking pumpkin spice flavored drinks. I can look at agree to disagree with a 1 through 10 scale and get a number. And numbers are great. People like numbers. We can use them for a lot of things. We can compare stuff, get a standard deviation. We can do all that stuff. We also have the Likert scale, like I mentioned before, right? So this is what we'd call categorical. So you pick a category. The person who's responding to this picks a category. And then finally, you could ask a very similar question, but just ask for people to respond. How do you feel about drinking pumpkin spice flavored drinks? And then you'd get something specific. So what kind of data comes out of this? Well, obviously, if you get numeric, you get numbers out, right? So I can do standard deviation. I can do all those fun things. The thing about numeric data, though, when you ask for it, is that you probably want to have something to compare it to. Just telling you that there's a median of people that gave me a 6 doesn't really tell me very much. 6 in comparison to what? So you probably want to make a comparison with something else. If you do something like this, this is what Google Forms gives you, a pie chart. This is not super helpful. It doesn't really tell you very much. Here's my pro tip for if you do use Likert scales. Stacked bar charts. Please use them. They're fabulous. And this gives you a better understanding of the agree side versus the disagree side. You can compare them that way. Here's my other thing. This is my pet peeve, my friends. Please don't do this. Do not turn Likert scales into numbers. If you see strongly agree, don't turn it into a 5 and a 4 and a 3 and a 2 and a 1. And this is because what happens is if you have somebody who picks a categorical variable, they're not picking a number. It's different. If you want them to pick a number, have them pick a number and then use those numbers, but don't convert. I see it too often. Please don't. And then finally, text, right? So this is much harder to synthesize, typically, but you get lots of information, like faux pumpkin is disgusting, or yeah, why? Just why? So the second question, you might have noticed that I'm sort of slamming my questions here because they're not very good. So this question also has some problems here. How many pumpkin spice drinks have you consumed in the last year? How many of you could figure out how many you drank in the last year? A couple of you? Okay. All right, that's good. Actually, that's pretty good. Typically, recall is really hard for people, especially for a year past, right? Knowing what I don't know, sometimes even know what I did last week, much less last year. So being able to come up with how many pumpkin spice lattes or whatever I've drank is somewhat challenging. So you always want to make sure if you do have a recall thing that you either try and make it something that people actually can recall. So a year is a long time to ask, maybe a week, a month, that kind of thing. But also add in an I don't know at the bottom, because people don't know sometimes, and that's okay. But there's a second problem with this question, which is that, I don't know if any of you noticed, this is really inconsistent here. I've got 2 spelled out, and then I've got 3 to 5, and then I've got between 6 and 18. 18? Why 18? And greater than 18? What's going on with this? So that's my next tip. Make the responses consistent. You want to make sure that there's something that's consistent there. So I changed this so that it's a little bit more consistent, right? Lest you think, once again, that I'm making this up, that people come up with inconsistent responses, let me give you one of the things I filled out. I don't know, it took me a while to actually find my number in here. I fail to know the logic of this. If somebody has the logic, please let me know. But wow, there's like a 3-year gap, and then there's like 16 years. I really don't understand. Okay, so the next one. This one, which of the following is the least bad product or the one you would be most like to bring home? This, my friends, is called a double-barreled question. Avoid them, please. Double-barreled questions are 2 questions smooshed together into one question because you're trying to put as much in your survey as you possibly can. This is a problem, and everybody has it. So it's the kind of problem that you'll also see in actual pollsters. Some of the bigwig pollsters have actually done this in the past, and it's a problem. The big problem is you're asking 2 questions, you don't know what they're answering. Which one are they answering? There's 2 questions in there. So I'll give you a few more examples of double-barreled questions. How satisfied are you with the flavored beverage options available during Halloween and Thanksgiving? Halloween and Thanksgiving, like, different. Do you think that pumpkin spice foods are nutritious and tasty? Some are nutritious, some are tasty. They might not be the same, right? They're different. Some of them might be one or the other. Do you believe there's a market for pumpkin spice beverages and that they would sell well? They might be similar questions, but there's 2 separate things, right? The next thing to think about here is also that the words good and bad are suspicious. I don't mean you can't use them. I'm just saying that they're suspicious. I'm not going to comment on this, but I did see this. Switzerland over here. But here's the thing, least bad product, right? Or even if I said a good product, good for what? Good for my waistline? Good for, if I'm gluten-free, then I'm not going to be eating some stuff. If I don't like chicken, then I'm probably not going to go for the sausage, right? Good in what sense? You've got to be a little bit more specific when you ask questions like this. Plus, when you look at the way people actually interpret words that you use, this is straight out of YouGov, there's a lot of different variation. People have different understandings. If we look at how positive or negative these words are that people are using, good is actually a little bit more good than bad is negative. Good is a little bit more positive than bad is negative, right? So given that, we have to be a little precise with our words, or at least more thoughtful about how we're using them. Good in what sense? Let's investigate those things. My final tip here is please don't answer terrible survey questions. You've got a sense now of terrible survey practices. Please don't answer them. Just don't. Say no. Tell people that their survey questions are crap. I mean, I know it's not very nice. You can say it nicer than that, but we can't survey fatigue is real. We need to stop doing that. And we also need to not contribute and add more, bad data out there. So this is the final thing. These are all my tips. Know your biases, work backwards. Recall is difficult. Make your responses consistent. Avoid double-barreled questions. The words good and bad are suspicious. And please don't answer terrible survey questions. This is me. Thank you very much. I'm going to do a short plug really here for the Alvieri Collective is doing a failing fast for women on the November 16th. I would love to talk to anybody who identifies as female. We would love to have folks there or to have the word spread. It's going to be an amazing conference. Thank you so much for your attention, and thanks to Donut.js.